In the third largest city in the United States, building up some of our city's most vulnerable neighborhoods is no small task. It takes a network of players, large and small.
It's taken decades to get to a state of disinvestment in these neighborhoods.
It takes a plan.
Organizing has been a part of Chicago's DNA, perhaps since the beginning of the city.
We have to be nimble. Neighborhoods are constantly changing.
And then it takes us, LISC's New Communities program.
It really is bottom-up development.
We work with local leaders to grow their great ideas by connecting them to the resources they need to get things done. This is our story.
By 1995 or 96, LISC in Chicago had come a long way on a housing program. But we looked at neighborhoods that had no grocery stores, still had poor schools, didn't have medical or health facilities, and so on. And we said, there's got to be more than what we're doing in terms of our approach.
The Futures Forum was an opportunity to step back and take a look at the future of community development in Chicago. It really brought together all of the key stakeholders across the city, residents, businesses, organizations, city officials, private sector, and they came and they looked at the future of community development, and they said we need to look at things a little differently than the way we have in the past. At the very first plenary session of the Futures Forum, a young fellow named Barack Obama, who was a state legislator, spoke to the assembled 200 or so people and talked about his principles of community development and laid out really the comprehensive agenda that we have been following ever since.
Out of the Futures Forum came the concept of healthy communities, an idea that community development is more than just building homes. It's building safe communities where families can live, work, and play. Community organizations and LISC began to implement this approach, beginning with 3 pilot sites, eventually expanding to 16 neighborhoods across Chicago. We called it the New Communities program, an innovative way to help neighborhoods create partnerships and develop programs to transform their communities.
The early years of that program were individual projects that across the board were in a variety of areas. So there was a lot of new youth projects or art projects or safety projects. And what we've seen evolve over time is it's not just about building the capacity of a neighborhood to do these different individual projects, but how those projects have grown into more complex, comprehensive programming. So the Elevate programming in middle schools, where you are putting in health services and solving for how kids get their physicals and how community residents access that health clinic. The diversity of after-school programming that should reinforce healthy eating habits, to connecting those parents of those children to our centers for working families so that they have the income supports needed to also maintain a healthy household.
The model that LISC provides as an intermediary and through the New Communities program is important because it brings together a number of different entities. So you're not just working with community organizations, you're also working with local political leadership, you're also working with the folks downtown at City Hall. They're bringing in corporate partners. This platform allows you to bring everybody together to work as one.
The program quickly gained momentum when neighborhood organizations released their community-generated quality of life plans, long-term goals for each community, broken down into specific short-term actions.
One of the effects of the New Communities program, I look at this and think the city of Chicago has effectively outsourced its function of community development planning, of neighborhood planning, to the New Communities program, at no cost to the city of Chicago, by the way. But it has been heavily endorsed, strongly endorsed by Mayor Daley, this program, because when he first saw these 16 plans that were released, and they weren't just theoretical plans, they were very practical plans that were ready to be, had specific steps to be implemented, he was impressed and he recognized this and latched onto it as this is what speaks for the communities, this is the community plan.
I think what we're seeing today is really the growth of an industry the growth of a way of doing things which is far more sophisticated and integrated than it has been at any time in the past. In the early days of the New Communities program, there were many good organizations who were working very hard to make individual projects happen. But over time, they began to link up, form partnerships, they began to work with each other, they began to link and make connections within communities so that they could create something that was even better and bigger and more impactful. And so what we've seen is this increasing level of communication and sophistication and community accountability, which has really created a dynamic force for turning around these communities.
Comprehensive development doesn't mean building a building and putting all sorts of services inside a building. It is a mindset. It is how you approach everything and understand how everything relates to everything else. If you're going to build up a neighborhood commercial area, you've got to make sure you got rooftops. If you're going to have jobs for folks, you got to make sure you're going to have good schools. If you're going to have good schools, you're going to have medical and health facilities that help take care of the kids. They all fit together. NCP is a distinct program, but it is really just a moniker on the way that we now approach all community development in Chicago. And to that extent, I think we've been terribly successful.